Now, here's the thing. You might be surprised that it's not counting up. That is by design, because when you use a component for the first time, it's not going to ship any JavaScript. It's going to server render it. This is the server rendered version of our button. And to enable it on the client, you tell it to load on the client.
Welcome to the Startup Stack, where we talk about the tools and tech you can use to build your next startup. Today, I had the opportunity to talk to Ben Holmes, a core contributor to the JavaScript framework Astro.build. We talked about Whiteboard the Web and all the fun things that he does on that front, but also we talked about the future of content and how he thinks about Astro with respect to that landscape. Overall, it was a really fun conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Definitely like and subscribe. And without further ado, let's do this. Today we have Ben Holmes on the show, who's a member of the Astro community, and I think names himself a core maintainer. Is that the role?
I do declare myself a core maintainer, yes.
Cool. Well, Ben, I guess first, I want to start by just maybe getting the background of how you got onto the Astro team and how you just give us like a quick 1-minute spiel on how you got here.
Yeah. So I've been in sort of the web tech space for a while. I did like a regular computer programming degree back in college and slowly started just playing with it on the side. You don't really learn web development in school, so it's something you just have to go try. And listen to a lot of podcasts, of course, read up on a lot of blog posts, started blogging all the stuff that I was working on. And eventually, during the 2020 times, I decided to rebuild my personal site without a framework. And it was the hardest thing I've had to do in a while. It forced me to learn like everything down to the file system APIs to see how you could build something like that, which eventually took me to some really bare bones static site generators and other fancy tools that led me to make my first NPM package, figure out how Vite worked, figure out how to bolt on React, Vue, Svelte, any framework you want into a static site generator. And all of that eventually led to a Twitter DM from the person who headed up Astro, Fred, saying like, this project is emerging. We are hiring. If you're interested in, interviewing, maybe joining us, let us know.
That's
and then
super
eventually
cool.
The stars aligned. I decided it's worth pursuing. So I jumped into it.
Very cool. And then, okay, so I guess most of the people would know your personality from the whiteboard. What is it? Whiteboard the Web, you call it?
Whiteboard the Web. Yeah.
How did that start? Did that start around the same time? Is that kind of like a orthogonal thing to the Astro stuff, or are you kind of doing that in the same space? Just curious.
Yeah, so it started around it was around last year that I was working on my first NPM package, something called Slinkity, that let you bring a lot of tools into the 11D static site generator, if anyone's heard of that. And I decided to promote this. I could put out like a blog post and then hope Twitter upranks it in some way, or maybe I could like film something, make it a little more exciting. So I opened my closet. All I had was a whiteboard and a Rock Band microphone from the original like Nintendo Wii. It actually sounds pretty good. It's a Logitech. It's not bad. But I plugged it up. I recorded a terrible video with terrible lighting, and people liked the charm of it. They liked.
Yeah, I know. It's like you're bringing TikTok. I don't think I would call it TikTok, but it's like a similar kind of vibe, but developers don't get that kind of content.
Yeah. I mean, it's vertical, so it's immediately in that TikTok space. And I also am not someone who watches like long form tutorials step by step. I bought a bunch of tutorials on Black Friday sales and finished none of them. So it's like, if I'm going to do something that I would watch, it's probably something really quick that just points me in the right direction of here's something to look at and here's why. Here's like a takeaway that you can take with you for like setting up your linter, setting up fonts, whatever you're trying to do. And I slowly golfed it down from 2 minutes 20, which was the Twitter limit, down to just 60 seconds, which is the YouTube Shorts limit. And it took a while to like really push it down to like a diamond of something.
Yeah.
And I'm finally getting that rhythm of like a 1-minute video feels natural. And it's just something I can upload and share anywhere.
Let's jump into Astro if you're cool with it. What's the use case for Astro? And what do I
Yeah.
compare it to with regard to the rest of my JavaScript tool set?
Sure. So, I mean, first off, like elevator pitch, Astro is a way to take all the tools that you love and bring them together to build content-focused sites. So, marketing sites and blog sites are the main two that you might be thinking of.
Okay.
And what do I mean when I say bring what you have? Well, you can use React, Vue, Svelte, Solid, any framework that you might be using if you are a developer in the front-end space. If any of those ring a bell to you, yes, they will work in Astro.
Okay.
And we have a lot of CLI helpers and Markdown and MDX renderers and a bunch of other things that are built in out of the box so that you can get on the web faster. And the main piece around all of that is also the performance piece of being able to pick and choose what JavaScript loads out of those components that you're putting on the site. So if you have a home page that only needs to load JavaScript for one little image carousel and the rest is just HTML, you have all the toggles to do that in Astro in a way that you could never do with Next.js. So that's really like the big pitch of if you got content focused stuff, we've got you.
And it's skinned as if it's React. In our case, let's say like we're like heavy React users, right? So we can just write React and then Astro spits out the optimized content page for what I need. Yeah.
Yeah. And we can get into like a little code demo if you want, but it's you start from HTML pages written with a .astro syntax that is very similar to JSX. So if you're in React, you're feeling good.
Okay.
And when you make a route, you can just put something in a pages folder, and that becomes a route on your site. And then inside of that page that you created, you can import all of those components that you want to use. And when you import each of those components, you can decide what JavaScript to load for that component and when. So if you wanted to say, like, I built a hero banner with this React Material UI library or something. You can import that hero banner, put it on the page, and server render it only, and not ship any JavaScript for it. You use React to write just some HTML to put on the page. And then below that, you can import your image carousel and say, you know what, I want to load JavaScript for this one. Maybe I'll wait until it's visible on the page, so like only when they scroll down do they pay the cost. So my Lighthouse scores are really good. You get a really fast page load, but when you want to learn more, then it'll load some extra resources to teach you about whatever product that you have.
Very
so for
cool.
like marketing and blogs, it's super powerful.
Makes sense. Tell me more about you mentioned that if I have a component that I want to side load the JavaScript and like not do it right when the page renders, I can do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
How does that work?
So if I wanted to make a classic example is a counter, so I will. It can be a JSX or a TSX file. They both work.
Got it.
I'll just go ahead and make export default function counter return. Well, we're not going to get any autocomplete in this online editor, but let me see if I can do this. Count set count equals use state. Help me out. Online editors. We got this. Import use state from React. Return a button. And on click, set count to count plus 1. And I'm just going to render the count in the button.
Nice.
With a plus. Okay. So this is React. Nothing special. Nothing interesting, really. But if we want to use this counter, you can import it. So, chill out. There we go. It recognized our TypeScript. Okay. When you save changes in this editor, it just reloads the whole page. It's a stack blitz thing. But let's go ahead and import our counter up top from component/counter. And, I'm in the layout, actually. I didn't mean to be here. Let's go to our home page. But you could use it in the layout, too. You can use it anywhere.
Got it.
But I'll import our counter, and I'll put it on the page. Like any other component. Now we have this guy. Oh, I never set an initial value. Silly me. 0.
This is actually a coding interview, not a podcast.
Now, here's the thing. You might be surprised that it's not counting up. that is by design, because when you use a component for the first time, it's not going to ship any JavaScript. It's going to server render it. This is the server rendered version of our button. And to enable it on the client, you tell it to load on the client. And now that I've done that, I have unlocked client-side reactivity. So you can choose which one you want.
That's very cool. And so, and that, does this, so, okay, and then there's like more complex things where if I, as like on visibility change, I want it to load or whatever, you can do that, yeah?
Yeah, and I can throw it to the bottom of the page maybe, add an HR tag and do a scope style. Watch this. Margin, block start, the size of the page. There we go. So now it's off the page. And I'm going to wait until it's visible to load the JavaScript. So I'm going to change this to client visible, which is one of a few directives we have to choose when the JavaScript loads. You can also do it based on a CSS media query with media, or you can wait for the browser thread to be idle with idle. This is a way to delay resources a bit more if you want to like wait for your analytics or something to load and then load this stuff. It just depends on how important it is to you.
Cool. Makes sense. Cool. Well, okay, Ben, I guess the next thing that I wanted to jump into is tell me more about like the content. Like, so you pitched Astro to me as like content-based sites, right? Like it's a framework for content-based sites. So let's dig deeper there. Like, how do people use Astro? And how do you recommend on, for example, I'm building some new landing page or blog or something like that. What are the sort of features of Astro that make that use case appealing?
Yeah, totally. We also have a really strong community of blog authors, docs authors, newsletter authors, anyone who's trying to create content on the web and just manage all of their posts with Markdown and MDX.
Yeah.
That is a use case we really care about. And I think it's one we nail better than other frameworks because we focus on it so much.
Sure.
And now we're trying to simplify all of that with strong type checking, actually making sure that when you write front matter, it's the right shape. If you need a title and description in every post, you can enforce that a title and description is there so that it's a build error if you don't have one with a good error message. All the stuff you probably need if you're managing a long-term content site.
Sure.
Mainly blogs, newsletters, etc.
Makes sense.
So,
and is that in the form of like a component? So it's like a component you export and I just put it in one of these pages, and then now I have all of these like fundamental content-esque features in front of me. Like, how is that exposed to the user? Okay.
So inside of my pages folder, I can create a markdown file, and that will just become a route on my site. And you can also use the layout property to wrap it with an Astro layout. So I made a blog post layout that pulls in the article, adds a publish date and some other things, and then my markdown slots right into here with the slot property. So if I head back over here, this is pages/about. If I jump into my dev server, I can go to my about page, and this will just be the contents of this markdown file. So markdown is just a page. You don't have to do any extra setup. That's supported out of the box.
Very cool. Ben, I'm curious, like with most things in web development now, we're kind of at a point where it's, do we have one big solution to a problem that covers all my bases okayishly? Yeah. Or do we have small solutions to problems that solve those problems very easily, right? Solve those problems very, very well, as opposed to one big solution that solves it okayishly for everything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do you think we'll continue to kind of like Astro will get better and better and better at the static use case, won't touch much else, and some other JavaScript framework will get better and better at single page apps, won't touch much else? Like, I guess if you were to bet on the future of the JavaScript ecosystem, where do you see it to be in like 5-10 years, you know?
Yeah. And I think I definitely believe there will not be one framework that addresses all needs on the web. There was a time that I actually kind of did, where I was looking at how islands work, when I was looking at like, oh, you can start from just HTML and then progress all the way up to a React heavy application. And I realized in between it was like, okay, from here to here, you gotta like Well, let me say that differently. When you're building a framework, you want to address people's needs as well as you can. And you only have a certain amount of bandwidth to address all of those needs. And right now, like, putting in weeks of effort to make content easier, which I have been working on with the RFC,
Yeah.
where you can, load Markdown, make sure it's type safe, and use it in your project. That's something that, the marketing and blog community is really excited about and wants to see taken further and further, maybe years of features going into like how you can manage that content better.
Sure.
But if we also tried to address like, ooh, you're building a dashboard, let's figure out single page apps. Let's figure out making this .astro file actually have like an on-click event with dynamic stuff. It's like you're alienating this first group by addressing this second group, and that's probably not a good idea right now. And it goes the other way too, where like people using, more JS heavy frameworks to build marketing and blogs. Anyone who's coming from like the Jekyll community or the Markdown community is like, that's too much code, I'm out. So it's like, yeah, you can't really address everyone's needs perfectly if you, want to build everything for the web. And you certainly can't make the most performance site if you're trying to do that. Like there's a base cost to building, a client side heavy dashboard. There's going to be 100 kilobytes of JS that you might not be able to shave off as much as you want. So I think there will always be a need for like multiple frameworks to do multiple things.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
I do want to speak to like the 5 to 10 year trend though, because there is like an interesting wave going on right now of like, let's try not React for a second and see how it goes. Where new frameworks are being spun up like Solid.js. Svelte has been growing and is now owned by Vercel, which is a prominent hosting company. And both of these are alternatives to React that ship a smaller JavaScript bundle and work a bit differently for the developer. Some might say even simpler than learning React for the first time. So we're starting to see this trend towards like, let's build more and more and more other frameworks before we pick a winner. And then let's whittle those down into what the next framework will be for another 2 or 3 years. And then we'll probably go through the same process of like exploding the universe and making a new one exploding the universe and seeing where we end up. That's just kind of the nature of like the spiral upward of like going back to old trends, adapting them to new trends, and then going back to old trends again.
Yeah. No,
So
it makes sense. And
all that
it's
to
probably
say, non-React is starting to rise, and we will see where that leads us.
nice. Okay, Ben. So maybe last few things that I wanted to go over. Thanks for the demo and stuff. This is super cool. I think there's a lot of people that could use this framework for their content management and that kind of stuff. I'm curious, like you mentioned at the beginning, actually, you talked about how you learned web development and how they don't teach this type of thing in schools. And I would consider you like content-wise, like an educator. Just because like I learned things from you and from all the web whiteboard the web kind of stuff. How do you feel about how do you feel about how people should be teaching web development, and should things in schools change? Should school change and like all that kind of fun stuff?
Yeah. Funny enough, I did like put together a whole boot camp on web development back in my college, Georgia Tech.
Oh, nice.
Go Jackets. We're not doing that well, but I put it together like in one big Notion document of just like videos walking through things and some walkthrough blog post. We also had like in-person workshops while they could be in person. This was 2019-ish.
Sure.
But we got to learn fundamentals of the web, walk towards building with React and MongoDB. The MERN stack was the thing at the time, sort of going away.
Yeah.
But it felt like, it felt like getting other people excited about a subject that, first off, is super hireable. Like, everyone coming out of these courses on Java and Kotlin are being told, oh, now you need to learn React to actually be hired. And it's like, oh, what's going on? I have to learn this for an internship?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's kind of tough. You can learn like the tricks of the trade to get through the interview process, which is going to be algorithmy. It's this kind of feedback loop of college curriculum inform how interviews go, and then interviews inform the college curriculum. So we're stuck doing LeetCode forever, maybe. But once you're on the job, it's like, yeah, you need to learn about back-end systems, maybe working on front-end too, depends on the focus that you choose, or
Yeah.
the one that, you're put on
Hired
for your
for?
team.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever you're hired for your first job. And for that, it's like, yeah, I feel like schools should go deeper into like building a full stack application. Like spinning up a Next.js site is super easy. You saw with Astro, I can literally do astro.new and start playing with the framework. It's super
Yep.
easy to just like teach a workshop on Astro where I tell everyone, oh, go to this webpage, start playing with code. Your first coding challenge is add a markdown file and write something about yourself. And
Yeah.
the second one is download React, and then let's learn what the useStateHook does in order to add a like button to that post that you just wrote.
Yep.
Like it's easy to just come up with something on the fly even because web frameworks are so accessible at this point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it feels like at least something that can be, first off, self-taught. I know boot camps are emerging, but going into high school and college curricula makes a lot of sense to me.
Okay. Okay. But you still think there's a place for like operating systems and algorithms and like classes like that? Like, yeah, I think I agree with you, but yeah, I think I agree with you, but I think what it sounds like you're saying is that that should be an extension of like the fundamental classes you take. Do you agree with that? Or yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's one side of me that's like, if you were to design a CS curriculum in 2022, it would look nothing like what it does right now, probably.
Yeah.
Because it has been born over decades.
And there's like a lot of noise, I guess. Yeah.
There's noise as well. I guess being more realistic, though, as like education doesn't change overnight, it's probably more like, yeah, once you learn the fundamentals of programming in Java or whatever language that you learn it in, then you learn the practical application of those languages. Maybe to lower end systems, maybe to C and assembly and robotics and other things that Georgia Tech was really big at.
Yeah.
Or you choose to go the other path and start doing, front end and UI sort of things, which in my opinion is more rewarding. It's where I found, it's where I got most of my excitement about programming.
Sure.
Was like first off doing game dev with Java back in high school, which is
okay.
like the worst language to do game dev, but I did.
Yeah,
It was
and
we had a high school class on programming, which is pretty rare.
sure,
But,
sure.
that's where we started
But
playing with that.
yeah, but that kind of says something to it, where it's like,
Yeah.
you also want to teach the languages that are at the intersection of learning the most, but also like the most job
Sure.
friendly,
Yeah.
And so
and Python
that
comes up a lot too.
Yeah,
where it's
yeah.
like, it's almost pseudocode. If you learn Python, you can kind of adapt it to any language. You feel pretty good about it.
sure.
So there is that for sure.
Okay, cool. Well, okay, Ben, I think we're kind of wrapping up.
Yeah.
I wanted to just thank you for being on here. This was super fun, and it's good to talk. It's been good to talk to you for more than 1 minute. And is there any? I guess maybe as a closing remark, Ben, is where can people find you, either to reach out or just see your content, that kind of stuff, and then any general closing remarks.
Yeah, totally. So my handle is bholmesdev, DEV, pretty much everywhere. It's on.
Okay.
If you want to see my GitHub stars for some reason, you can go there. I'm on YouTube at bholmesdev. I'm on Twitter where I'm most active while it's still up. And also have a TikTok channel and a Mastodon if you are looking for those things.
Cool.
But the main URL I'll leave you with, wtw.dev. It's where all my videos are. It's where we show off the whiteboard and other things.
Sounds good.
So,
Built in Astro, I imagine.
It is. Yeah.
I like it.
Astro,
I like it.
big solid component on Vercel.
Nice.
A lot of fun tech in there.
Cool. Well, thanks, Ben. I appreciate it. This was fun.